Hi, happy Tuesday. This is Bipolar Back Room. I hope it's reaching some of you that I haven't um, have record of reaching you. It's meant to be informational, peer support, and someday, hopefully, uh, interviewing. Okay, so today's book, which is very, very helpful, Bipolar, A Guide for Patients and Families, third edition, Bipolar Disorder by Francis Mark Mondimore, MD, Mondimore. I also wanted to give you the copyright. It's a 1999 copyright. So it just made my dissertation because my dissertation was um, books and articles from 2000 to the time of my dissertation writing. So 1999, my dissertation advisor would allow it in. So in the preface, and I think this should make everybody that has bipolar disorder feel just a smidge better. About 2% of the population suffers from some form of bipolar disorder. Winston Churchill, George Frederick Handel, Lord Byron, Virginia Woolf, Edgar Allan Poe, Napoleon Bonaparte, Vincent van Gogh are only a few of the politicians, writers, artists, and musicians who, despite having bipolar disorder, left a mark of greatness upon the world. So there we are. If this is a disorder that's for you, you have, or a family or a friend, the possibilities for your life are still reach for the moon. Okay, so here comes some symptoms and diagnoses taken right from the book because I want to make sure that I get them correctly. Bipolar disorder is the chameleon of psychiatric disorders, changing its symptoms from one patient to the next and from one episode of the illness to not next, even in the same patient. It is a phantom that can sneak up on its victim, cloaked in the darkness of melancholy, but then disappear for years at a time, only to return in the resplendent but fiery robes of mania. It wasn't until the early part of the 20th century that a German psychiatrist, Emil Kraepelin, Kraepelin, convincingly presented the idea that these opposite conditions were two sides of one pathological coin, the two faces of Janus faced, disease that he called manic depressive insanity. We don't use insanity anymore. But in the beginning, insanity asylums, that was all vocabulary that they were dealing with. Bipolar disorder collected into three main clusters. These aren't the names that I gave you the other day, like bipolar 1, bipolar 2. Um, these are the three mood states. So this is down underneath the titles: mania, depression, and mixed mood states. Okay, so I spoke about that. We'll get more details where you could be depressed, manic, irritable, all in one day. It'd be a very interesting day. Okay. Mood is like our emotional temperature, a set of feelings that expresses our sense of emotional comfort or discomfort. Hang on a second. I don't want to repeat myself. Okay, so mania, accelerated thinking, racing thoughts, which I know I described it as racing thoughts in my dissertation, increased libido and hallucinations. We're not going to spend too much time on hallucinations, because when I give you the percentage of people that happens to, it's you break down bipolar, how many people have the different types, and then how many people actually have, an extreme symptom like a hallucination. Um, Rapid or pressured speech. Several patterns of behavior typical of the manic state: spending sprees, sexual promiscuity, overuse of alcohol, and other intoxicating substances. Also, grandiosity, the person feels a sense of grandiosity. Sometimes a manic individual can go from elation to irritability. Uh, Younger research before my dissertation, I didn't realize that irritability was in there with manic states. And this irritability can bring a patient to medical attention. And when we go for hypo manic episodes, which I did speak about, hypo from the Greek word means under, and instead of idling in neutral, oh, this is a quote from a patient. Instead of idling in neutral, I was always in overdrive. So that's describing the manic feeling. And I don't want to repeat myself. And this is depression, but there's a depression when you lose a person in your life, a divorce, a losing of the job. That's a depression that I bet everybody on here, whatever your situation is, could give descriptors that were very, very true. But this depression with bipolar disorder, everything becomes bland, dull, and lifeless, like you're just going through the motions. I'm trying not to. Okay, this is a longer quote about this kind of depression. It's not like losing a member of your family, losing a friend, losing a job, getting divorced. It's not like that whatsoever. The patient's thoughts are as if they're paralyzed, immobile. They no longer are able to perceive, or to follow the train of thought of a book or a conversation. They have no memory, and they no longer they no longer have a command of knowledge formerly familiar to them, must consider a long time about simple things. A numbness. Depression, I want to say a depression that isn't clinical is much more sadness and crying and melancholy, and we're getting numbness and being paralyzed. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to repeat myself and getting to the essence of what I want to cover today. Okay, mixed states can be mixed mania and mixed depression. Okay, I think I'm going to read this quote, and then after this quote, it's a term called ultra rapid cycling. This is how fast somebody manic goes. Okay. I'll show you a picture that I drew because a lot of people have a head of somebody that's bipolar. And I'll just give you an example of one that I found doing my research. So it's a head, just orange, white, and black. And little guys with a negative charge are swinging, and little guys with a positive charge are swinging, and there's a hoot and a holler of them. In my research, no brain seems to reflect that. So when I found that, I made a bust, a head, and I made I hope this is the right thing to say, concentric circles, and then concentric, a little thing that looks like I have a thought, 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 which is more the manic side. But I'm not an artist, but I was happier with my picture than I was with the orange, black, and white. And I put pink and light blue and yellow in the brain that I drew. Okay, so let me see. Okay, we're getting to the end. Okay, so here's a quote, and underneath it is rapid cycling. Manic patients may transitorily appear not only sad and despairing, but quiet and inhibited. A patient goes to bed moody and inhibited and suddenly wakes up the feeling as if a veil had been drawn away from his brain, passes the day in manic delight in work, and the next morning, exhausted with a heavy head, he again finds himself the whole misery of his state. Or the hypomanic exultant patient quite unexpectedly makes a serious it becomes a serious situation. Okay, the one thing I want to show you, and I wish I was better at this, because I'll give you my version. The other day I said there is a baseline. Okay, baseline. This is what everybody's mental health looks like that's not mentally ill. And then I said bipolar 1 can take a real high manic depressive episode. Hypomanic, which is bipolar 2, they're supposed to never have the highest mania. They're a little bit under. And then you have the baseline, and then you have a big wave underneath, but filled in is mild depression and severe depression. So let me see how well I can do this. All right. So this is the depression. Right there might be mild depression, right there might be extreme depression. I have to realize that I'm going the opposite way. Okay, mania over here, the high up above the line would be mania, and under that line would be hypomania. Okay, so this chart should be something that anybody that has bipolar, cares about somebody that's bipolar, has a family member that's bipolar. I will give you the page. This is in the book. 32 in Bipolar Guide for Families and Patients, 3rd edition, Bipolar Disorder, Francis Mark Mundimore, MD, 1999. And I'll spell Mundimore again, Mondimore. So I think the biggest point I want to make is a depression, a melancholy from getting a divorce, losing a family member or a friend to death, losing a job. I forget the fourth thing I did. That can be crying and melancholy and feeling awful about yourself. Manic depression is numbness, just going through the motions of life. You can't stay with somebody's conversation, all the wonderful memories that you have and the knowledge that you've attained prior to an extreme bipolar depression. It'll all go. The hopeful thing is when you get help, starting with a psychiatrist, which we'll talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, plus medication, plus a counselor, plus that safety net. Okay, we want to create that safety net. Family members, friends, real friends, not just Facebook friends, real friends that could be there when you need them, like in the middle of the night. That's what you want. And somebody in some part of my dissertation said, not that I am pushing medicine, but they said there are like 16 medicines that can help bring somebody who's bipolar back to as close to baseline as possible. If one of the meds doesn't work for you, then maybe another one will, maybe another one will. And this person that said this to me said, there's 16, minimally, there's 16. They're probably inventing them, all the time. So the future doesn't have to be all negative, all, I'm bipolar, my life is down the drain. That's not at all. Okay. In our day and age, there are psychiatrists that specialize in this if you want, medicines, if that works. Maybe you don't want to take medicine. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which I think I'll make that the topic for the next one. Diet, sleeping, that schedule that I spoke about in one of the first episodes. So you're all the best because you made it here to be with me. Everybody have a good night, and I'll be live at 5 tomorrow on Hump Day. Take care. Bye-bye.